Cool. Welcome to Burn the Ship. Thank you both for coming, first of all. I know that Atlanta is not the most desirable city to traverse the terrain in a car, but thank you for coming. It does mean a lot. Anybody that allocates the time to come hang out with us in the studio for a while means a lot. So thank you for that. This is Burn the Ship. Our goal is to connect entrepreneurs with professionals that can help you go all in on your business, right? We want to talk to small business owners that have walked the walk and talked the talk, and experience all the challenges that we face in the small business and entrepreneurial world. So, again, thank you for coming. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
My name is Cathy Reinking, and I'm a former casting director from Los Angeles, and now I have a Charismatic Leadership Program that I'm pretty excited about. Hope
Nice.
to talk about that.
I'm glad you're excited about your charismatic leadership
I
program.
know, well, you gotta be. 'Cause
Yeah, for sure.
I'm charismatic about
Yeah.
my charismatic leadership.
What about yourself?
I'm Daryl Dillard. I'm an actor, writer, director, beginning to branch out in public speaking.
Nice. All right, tell me a story. Because obviously I've done a little bit of research and I understand a little bit about what both of you do. But tell me a story of like your past life, and how you guys kind of came together. What's the synergy between you two?
Oh.
I'm curious.
Well, I'm a casting director, and he's an actor,
Mhm.
so
Did you guys meet in LA?
yes, we
Yes.
did.
Nice.
Yeah, we
What
did.
brought you to Atlanta?
Well, I was hired to cast a film here in Atlanta in 2016. I had never been to the South. I never imagined I would go to the South. And so I came, and Daryl was the associate on the film with
Oh,
me.
nice.
So we came together, and I loved it so much when I got here. I decided to stay.
When was that?
2016.
2016.
Yeah.
What was the film industry like in Atlanta in 2016?
It was coming up the ranks. I mean, production right now in Atlanta, when there is production, because of course
Yeah,
there's a
strike.
actor strike right now, but there's more production here now than in LA or New York,
Really?
and it was almost at that level. Would you say?
Well, when we got here in 2016, after about a week of being here, kind of checking out the landscape, talking to casting, seeing the actors, and getting ourselves acclimated to the area. I think it was probably the 8th day we were here. I was in an Uber actually, who was doing this video thing of like stories in an Uber, and we were talking about it, and I said at that point, Atlanta is finding Apple before it goes public,
Right.
and that was in 2016, and since then it has exploded.
Yeah. So what's your day-to-day like now?
Well,
Both, well, I guess pre-strike.
pre-strike,
Post-strike.
yeah, pre-strike. I've been fortunate enough that I've been pre-strike. I was auditioning about 5 times a week.
Wow.
Shooting stuff. Before the strike, I was headed for my best year. I think I did 9, 10 shows in 2022.
Wow.
I started the year. I had a shoot every month before the strike, so it was really going in the right trajectory for me before the strike happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that we just continue that after it's over.
For
you want
sure.
to say a couple of your couple of jobs you've had? You want to list your credits a little bit? Sorry.
I hate doing that.
Oh, come on.
The most recent one was Young Rock, that was on NBC.
Mm-hmm.
Monarch, I was recurring on that. Ozark, The Resident, and then Pain Hustlers, which is out now on Netflix. So those are a couple.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so what about yourself? Is what you're doing now kind of a reaction to the strike? Is it something that you were interested in doing beforehand?
Yeah, well, I started my charisma coaching program in 2006.
Oh, okay.
When I
So you're
first
kind of-
worked with, I was living in Colorado, and I was working with financial advisors and accountants, and that was going really well. But then, it's a long story, and then I got really sick, and so I had to put that aside. And then when I was well again, then I started working with actors just because it was easier for me, and it was my jam.
Sure.
So then I went back to that, but then fast forward now to this time, I've resurrected it because of the strike, but I find that I really want to work more with business people now than with actors.
Really?
Yeah, in a big way. And I think business people, suffer the most by not being comfortable in who they are sometimes, and just helping them be more comfortable in their own skin and to be more authentic. Because business people put on an act in a way more than actors.
For sure.
Because good acting is stripping away to the human being you are, and it's not, actors don't put on an act. They just are. They're present, they're listening, they're in their body, and it feels like non-actors have trouble getting there.
Yeah.
So that's what I help them do.
So what type of business people are you looking to work with? Are you looking to work with executives mostly? Like, what is the...
Yeah, the ideal is to work with the top executives first of a company, and then it trickles down. So I start with that level, and then it goes down to the next level, and to work with all the employees in a certain company.
Yeah, for sure. And so the goal is just to let more of that personality shine for a lot of those people, if I'm understanding.
Yeah, it's a lot deeper than that.
Yeah.
Like, we really take a deep dive into who you are and how you communicate that, and it's just kind of, again, stripping away, but the process I use is really, really unique.
Sure.
I think I would say that if you are, she can work with executives, but even more so if you're starting a business or have turnover in your employees and you need to get a new staff, or you're working on your staff, she would be pivotal in getting the right staff in the area, because she should be the one talking to the people that you're interviewing.
Right.
So if you like them, then let her talk to them and see where they are, to kind of see who they are. Because like the executives and like business people, if you're trying to get a job, you're putting on the biggest mask of all, because you're trying to do something to make sure that they like you.
Yeah.
And she has a way of finding out what you really are. So that mask would fall. So then you won't get, like, a lot of times you have a lot of turnover where you hire someone, you think they're great, and then a month in, you're seeing these issues that are coming up because you did not know who they really were. She gets to that point so quickly that you can find out before you hire them. And if you do that in that process, you're going to have people that are going to be there longer periods of time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So what are your goals now? Kind of where are you? Are you starting fresh?
I'm not starting fresh with the program, but I'm starting fresh in connecting with people, that aren't actors.
Sure.
Because most of my time was spent with actors and, helping them. I have a writing program for actors. I was coaching, and I also produce shows in town, storytelling shows. So I do a lot of things, but right now I'm just trying to connect with business people, and I'm not in that world, on a daily basis. So
I can help
it's
you find
pivoting my audience.
Yeah, I can help you
what it
find
is.
that world.
I guess we're doing that right now. So.
Oh, you definitely are. You're definitely going to reach some of those people on this program, but I mean, where all of the other salespeople are, that's where they are, and they're there. I mean, I would say, if there's 5 of us, I mean, we have to connect with 500 businesses a week, mostly face to face. I mean, that's how commanding the payments industry is, as far as, because realistically you have a larger set of potential clients than us, because nothing real estate related is for us. We basically get retail, restaurant, service industry, contractors, like e-commerce. That's about it for us. But we know a lot. We can definitely introduce you to some cool places to find those people. Tell me a little bit about your goals. Tell me a little bit about, if it goes perfectly, how it goes from here. I want to know your answer as well, because obviously your answer is heavily dependent upon the release of motion back to the entertainment world. So
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
your goals. Where do you go from here? If everything goes perfectly exactly how you want it, what does it look like in X amount of time?
To change the landscape of how businesses run and how people show up, like to change drastically.
Mm-hmm. Like and how?
Like getting to the core of each individual human being and what are their strengths, and to step fully into who you are, because really we are hiding most of the time.
For sure.
For, you know, for fear of somebody will see our dark side and they won't like it, and they, you know, and so we hide the stuff we don't like about ourselves, but in fact the stuff you don't like about yourselves could be part of your gold.
Mm-hmm.
Because part of the charisma coaching thing is being able to look at your dark and light and then find the perfect combination, because if you're all light, you're not going to be believed and you're going to seem fake, and if you're all dark, you're going to repel other people. So it's finding your perfect balance.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. That is that's tough too. It's very tough. I mean, you want to be appreciated and respected as a professional, but you also still want to be yourself. Is something that you wrestle with for a long time, you know. And I think that it wasn't until the pandemic where I started to really just be myself all the time. Because I feel like people did that a lot more during the pandemic, is really be loose and like unapologetic about who they were for the most part. But really the difference for me was spending so much time on camera. Like I spent so much time on camera that I would watch myself back, or I would go edit my own videos and I would be like, dude, you sound like you don't mean a word that's coming out of your mouth, right? Because like I would try to be so eloquent or so proper or so respectful of the guest, really, because like really we want to represent your business how you want yourself to be represented on the podcast, on everything that we do. I mean, we just want you to be represented the way that you want to. I think that's everybody's right, is to represent themselves the way that they want to, especially with their business. It's yours, and you're going to put a lot of work and time and hours and effort into it. And if you don't represent it like you want to represent it, I mean, what are you doing it for? And so I would try to both in a sales perspective and from a just interaction perspective, is just try to be my like most professional self. And then I was really like, man, it comes off so fake. Like it's not.
That's the worst thing to do, is to be a professional, because that's not human. I'm glad you brought up about the fact of going on camera helped you, because that's part of my process. Putting people on camera and interviewing them, and then stopping it and go like, okay, what emotional qualities are you showing? Do you see anything that go, oh my God, I look scared, I'm boring, monotone. So it's like this whole process that involves being on a camera.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. Some people come into this podcast, it's the first time they've ever been on camera. And like, you know, part of the process is talking to people before the whole camera is rolling and everything. That matters. Build some rapport with people, build some comfortability in the room. There's no amount of talking that would break down that wall that some people have about being on the camera. And they know what they agreed to before they came, so they know it's good for them. But it's a difficult thing, especially when you've never done it. It's hard not to act weird. It really is.
Yeah, it is.
What about yourself? I'm curious as to what your goals are. Like, are you biding your time? Or are you finding other ways to make yourself be productive? Or
I think for me, to go along with what we're talking about, I really didn't have my authentic self and success start until after things went really bad. So the pandemic made everybody kind of shut down. I did a film where I directed it, and it was something that was really stuck in me. That's one of my
dreams, yeah.
Yeah, so it was really something I had in my head, and I kept having it, and it just got louder and louder, and finally I did it, and then I held on to it for another year and a half after it was done, because it was just like, this is too much me. It's too raw. It's too totally me without any pretense. And I was afraid to show it to people, because it was very controversial too, because it was about police brutality. So eventually I decided I'm going to start sending it out. I'm going to start checking festivals. I'll just, whatever. And the thing just exploded. It accepted to all these festivals. It won awards. And it was a weird thing, because it was, and I was going for 3 years, I think? 3-year run. Every festival I went to and they showed it, it always made me, I've seen it 100 times, but I still felt that kind of like, it gave me goosebumps and kind of weird feeling, because it was not me in a character, not me pretending to be someone else. It was me.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that she's talking about. It's when you are that raw, that's what really resonates with people.
Yeah.
So that happened and it was great. And then it was like, okay, so now what do I do after that? And you start to go back into what you're used to and being professional, which is the worst thing ever. That's the most awful thing. But I came in a military background, so professional was like status quo.
Yeah.
Like that is all you do. You don't show emotion. You don't do anything. So it took me years to break that down and to be able to be emotional in front of people, much less in front of a camera.
Right.
But I did come to the realization that the camera's it's just another person. So if you can talk to a person, you can talk in front of a camera.
Oh, yeah.
But if you can't talk in front of a camera, that means that in front of people, you're going to have issues too. So it goes together, but people, well, I'm better in front person. Not really. You think you are, but not really.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see it because you can't see it back. So I think directing really helped me kind of get open more. And then I directed someone else's words for the first time. And that was kind of an expression of my creativity. That really opened up myself and my profession and my performances, because now I'm looking at it from the whole scene.
Yeah.
Like I can see more things instead of me trying to be professional and, trying to do my lines. Now I can see the whole story more. It just, for some reason, it opened a lot of things up.
Right.
That was the first part. Then,
forgive me if you said it. What was the catalyst for showing your film? Because I know you said that you kind of harbored it and
yeah, I did. I harbored it. A lot of people were talking, like I need to show it, and I was like, I don't know. And then
had you shown it to those?
I've shown it to some people because this was when we were just before I moved here. I shot it
from
in
LA.
Okay. Yeah, and I showed it to people, and they were saying how much they wanted it to. You got to show, you got to do something with it, and we came to do that film. Then I went back to LA. Then my father got sick, and I moved back over here. And then after he passed away, I had it for a little while. And then I thought it was too late. Mm-hmm. I thought, well, it's not even an issue anymore. And then another wave of police killings happened. And then it was that feeling again that I had when I made it, that I've got to do something. I got to, this is too much. So I finally started letting it out because I just couldn't hold it anymore.
Yeah. I was just curious as to what the catalyst was. I didn't want to forget my question.
Oh, no.
But keep going though. I'm curious where your directorial influence kind of plays into it.
Well, it was the directorial kind of gave me that vision, and it also, I opened up emotionally with that. And then my father got sick. I came back here. He passed away eventually, and then I moved here, and I let that out. I let the film out, and then COVID happened, and I got very, very. I was one of the very, very sick. Almost died.
Me too,
from
pal.
COVID. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. So before COVID, my apartment burned down.
Oh, wow.
So I lost everything. I was in an apartment or a hotel for a month and a half. Then I finally got an apartment, and then 2 months later I got COVID, and then all of these things happened in a course of 6 months.
Wow.
And I'm 100% that the only thing that saved me was I have asthma, and I had inhalers, and friends were sending me inhalers. So I was using an inhaler like every 10 minutes just to kind of to breathe. And that, I think, kind of helped because once I got out of it, I've been on a steroid inhaler since then. Like my doctor said, I may have to do it for the rest of my life.
Jay, too.
Okay.
The owner of my company, same exact thing, asthma with the inhaler, used it the whole time he had COVID, and then has the steroid inhalant now.
Yeah. So that those combination of things, that the first part opened it up. When that happened, there's something I kind of felt when you get to that point, all of the distractions go away.
Yeah.
And it's really what matters.
Yeah.
And it's very few things. Like we blow up a whole lot of stuff, but there's very few things that matter.
It's a strange level of clarity.
It is. And it makes it so for me, it kind of cleared up a lot of things that I was worried about, or being professional, doing the right thing, looking the right way. All of these things went away and my acting changed. Mm-hmm. So then it was more, and I got more and more comfortable and more it's just me. The more you get to be just you, the more you your success is going to happen. So
Right.
so for me now, I want to do more directing. I also am working on more writing because there's a lot of stuff that I need to actually write it down, but I have like 15 things in my head. So when things are starting to amp up again, I just want to just continue to open up and just do more of that. And then also the public speaking aspect of it, I'm still very, very new to it, but there's an aspect of it where all my life I've been talking to people. All my life I've been helping people with whatever's going on. And there's a perspective that I have that seems to be resonating with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And with my experiences, I feel like there's a lot of things. Someone asked me what is one word would be described for what I would talk about. And I think it's perseverance. Because with all those things going on and all those setbacks, you still keep going. And there's a lot of times where you don't want to, or you don't feel like you can. And I know that I was in that hotel after my apartment burned down, and I walked in there with a t-shirt, a pair of shorts, pair of socks, and shoes. That's it. That's what I had for 2 weeks. And I had to go and get something else. And in the middle of that, I got to work on a film. And it was the most joyous I've ever felt on a set because I was just so happy.
You're thankful to be there.
Thankful to have something like that. And it was the most authentic thing that I did up until that point. And that's where it started to kind of be okay to be yourself. And it's not only just okay to be yourself, it's imperative to be yourself because otherwise you're just a facsimile of something else we've already seen, and we don't need that. Especially now, we need everybody to be who they are because everyone has something unique. So I'm trying to kind of, for me going forward, is to just continue to be okay with that. Every day, open up a little bit more. Every day, say a little bit more. I still have that issue of whether it matters or not what I have to say or I have that issue, that self-doubt of letting it out to the public.
Yeah, imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. And so I still fight that every day. Mm-hmm. And you know, all these things I want to do, during the strike I haven't done. I've just been like, okay, I need to, survive basically. Let's keep the money going in a different way and, that kind of thing. But I'm finding more and more I just want to just be more creative. I need to let it out. I have a lot of creativity, but she sees it more than anybody else.
Right.
So I need to show it to everybody else.
No, that's exciting. Yeah, directing a film, maybe not even a film, just directing a short film, I think is something that I definitely want to cross off my list. So we started doing this podcast, right? And one of my best friends from my hometown went to SCAD. So graphic design, incredible. Video editing, even more incredible. Like music production. He released albums while we were in high school that he completely engineered himself, like super talented. And so I brought him up here to be part of the team. We hired him, still work with him to this day. But he taught me a lot about, like, we kind of put this studio together and figured out ways that we could make it work. And one of the first podcasts we did was ATL rugby, right? So if you may not be aware, but Atlanta has a professional rugby team.
Really?
Mm-hmm. They play out of Life University in Marietta, so their stadium. And they've got quite the fan base. I mean, it's cool. What they do is cool production-wise, and everything's really cool. But they hired us to do their, like, post-game recap video, all of these, like, edited pieces of content that they put out, right? Keep in mind, I think if you go back and look, they're like our 7th podcast, right? I mean, it's early. But they liked us so much, and they knew that I was really into it. And so my job was post-game press conference. And it was still during COVID, right? So, like, basically what you did was set up a podium and banner and everything that you need, audio, visual, everything. And then you set up like a conference call with a bunch of reporters and you let them ask their questions to the coach. You cut back and forth between the reporters. Like, I had a science to it. And that was when I fell in love with live production, because from the end of the game, you had 7 minutes. You only had 7 minutes all the way from running power to the field to somebody sitting down on the microphone to talk, right? And it's because it's on TV. right? It's because they have TV time is dead set. Like, you get a certain amount of time to do these things when TV has the precedent for everything else, right? So, like, the stuff that you get to do for your own team, you get 7 minutes after the game. And so when I started figuring out, like, okay, I'm good at this and I enjoy it a lot, that was when, like, that creative, that was the first time I really feel like I ever was creative in my life. Like, truthfully, like, I had done, and no desire to do anything. I guess maybe in sports. Sports, I was very.
Sports is creative.
Yeah.
That was definitely a canvas. I played the game in such a way that definitely no one in this area plays it. You know what I mean? Like, I played like Indiana style of basketball, and it was just such a different brand of ball versus what you saw, especially in Atlanta and things like that. Like, they wanted to play with the pace, and I wanted you to foul me every single time. You know, like, I was the guy in high school shooting 15 free throws a game, and like it was a problem for I slowed the game down and just grinded it to a halt. And like, that was maybe the most creative thing I had done, like, up till college. But then once I got into live production, I know that, like, directing and things like that is really what I'm interested in. I have done so much research just trying to understand what that scale of production is like. And I've had a couple of people that have kind of came across our, just people that we've met through meeting people in the business world that, like, they're executive producers and things like that. And they produce, like, big movies, and they've allowed me to come, like, check their set out and just understand how these things happen, and like that I think is really something interesting to me. Or directing stuff like this, like podcasts. Like, I think that is the creative canvas that I'm after too. So I can relate to you. I never had that like, fear of public speaking. I always thought the exact same thing. Like, what is it that people would want to hear me say, And then I realized, like, that's not the only canvas out there in the world is your mouth. You know what I mean? It's like you can create things in so many different ways now that it is the whole world is just a canvas for you to do whatever you want with. And that's really what I think is the most interesting thing about your industry is you can make anything, especially with the way technology is now. You can do anything that you can put your mind to, which is really interesting. So I appreciate you sharing because that hits home with me for sure.
Yeah, this time is the most creative time, I guess, ever. There's so many ways of doing things.
It's just the ceiling is the highest. You know? The creative ceiling is infinite now, I feel like.
Yeah.
Tell me this, right? So I guess I'm asking this question in a multifaceted way, but, like, what skill would you say has been most important to getting the things that you're interested in going? Because obviously you've done several different things, and you as well, and you've been inspired to do several different things over time and work with different sets of people. But, like, what is that skill that you possess that helps you know whenever you decide you're going to conquer something new, like, this is what I'm going to lean on most to try and be successful early on?
God, that's a really good question because I've pivoted a lot in my life. I'm fearless, and I, when I was younger, I really didn't have the resources, financial resources that people usually have. But I wasn't going to let anything keep me from doing something. Yeah. Even though I'm kind of shy in my core, I'm fearless. I will just pivot. We lead a creative life, so you can always, like, create what is the thing you're going to do next, and that's really liberating.
You have like a healthy balance of fearlessness and being solution oriented. You know how that is very rare.
Never heard it put that way.
Well, your brain works in a way where you solve problems, right? Like, I've talked to you a few times, and I can tell that you solve problems. Like, you approach things from, like, I need to solve this thing, and then you solve it, and then you help other people do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
But you're also, like, not afraid to put more on your plate. You know what I mean? And I can relate to that, where you're like, okay, well, now we can start solving other stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I relate to that. So it seems like you have a little maybe healthier balance than I do of those things.
I'm curious too. I'm curious about people.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And how they tick and why they do certain things. So I think curiosity is a really important trait to have.
For sure. Yeah, I think we share some similarities in that field, because like this type of interaction right here, I love this stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's such a rare thing that people actually come and give themselves to something like this. You know what I mean? Like give who they really are. And I think we've made a thing that for the most part people are very open about who they are and what they feel and what they sucked at. You know what I mean? Like I've never had anybody say, "Oh, I don't know my weaknesses." Everybody's like more prone to tell you about their weaknesses than their strengths, you know, which I think is a really cool thing about whatever we've done that has set that culture here. But people are very giving. And it has inspired me to do the same thing. Like what are people's thought processes that make them do certain things? And it's always so interesting to me. And then you add that in with the production world and you start seeing the real characters of the world. You're like, man, there's just infinite things to learn about people.
Yeah.
And there's infinite problems to solve with people. Like, people will always have issues. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And you create them yourself. So.
Yeah.
What about yourself? What would you find is your revolving skill?
I think there's a combination for me of analytics and the best way I can put it is maybe reluctant leadership. Every job I've had, I've not been the number one big boss or whatever, and I never wanted to be. But any job I've ever had, they bypass the big boss and they come to me. And they make you
step up to the plate.
And then I solve all the problems. So I think, and that's another thing with like, we talked about people who are working a job and then they want to be their own boss, but they're kind of in the middle. That's the thing where I feel like everywhere I've worked, I've actually been my own boss because the bosses pretty much let me do what I want because I already know how to do better than them what they were doing. But at the same time, all of those jobs came with the point of letting you go because maybe you're doing the job too well. You're making your boss look bad. Or it's just they're downsizing. So if you're already being an entrepreneur in the safety of that, and that's one of my weaknesses is I like safety. I overanalyze as well. So I like to make sure I know everything that's going to happen ahead of time, and you can't do that in entrepreneurship. You just can't. So for me, I'm very good with people. I bartended for a long time. That's actually how we met. She came into my bar, and she
really
absolutely just to go. Is
that just a very common actor thing?
It is. And
they all bartend.
It is. Well, because the thing is,
or they have at least. They maybe not all do it at the same time, but I feel like they all have at some point
either bartender or server.
Oh yeah.
Now, and I also think that it's interesting the difference between a bartender and a server too, because there's a server that has that they're out in front of you and then they're gone and they have that downtime. Bartenders don't have that downtime. You're constantly in front of people.
That's true.
So it's a little bit of a different thing. Like you almost feel more comfortable because you're around people constantly. You can't get away.
You know the servers are going back to the kitchen and letting out that deep breath.
Yeah.
God, I got to go back out here and be nice to 8 more people.
But the other thing is, too, as a bartender, you don't have to be super nice.
No, you don't. Not at all. I'm
Servers
very aware.
feel like they do, but bartenders don't. And, it was interesting when I did bartend and people would come in and they would ask for a drink, and I could tell that that's not what they just were doing safety stuff. I would say no. Every time. Like, I just want this. No, you don't. Like, what do you mean? I was like, that's your safety drink. What do you really want? And it was very interesting because I learned to kind of read people very quickly.
Yeah.
So I can read situations like you were talking about solving problems. I'm very analytical. So if there's something going on, I got to figure out the solution. I just look at it a different way. And when I started directing, I quickly learned that something's going to go wrong. I don't care what it is. So when I have my first meeting with someone, I say, okay, so this is what we're going to do. We've got the plan all together. We're excited. Okay, so last thing, something's going to go wrong. What? I don't know. Something is going to go wrong. Several things are going to go wrong.
Oh, yeah.
I just want you to stick with me. There's going to be problems. Just stick with me. Don't panic. We'll just go to the next thing. And it always happens. So the last film I directed, we lost everything. We lost the cinematographer, we lost the location, we lost all of these things, the producer, and then 2 weeks later, all of it came back in one person. Like we found one person that had a location, was a producer, had a crew, had everything. But as long as you stick with it and keep going, it'll happen. So for me, it's analytics, and then reading people.
But just not too much analytics.
Not too. See, that's the thing. I have too much analytics. Too much analytics will get you in trouble.
Yeah,
so you have to temper it. You have to know. My passion of a project will push the analytics aside.
Mm-hmm.
So your passion really is something that really has to be there as well.
He has led me into my next question. What was really difficult for you? What do you find really difficult still, as far as like if you could go back and give yourself a skill that you've developed over time on day one, which one of those skills would you find most valuable?
Just not being so hard on myself.
Preaching to the choir, my friend.
Just, yeah. Because
Yeah.
that
Us creatives, huh?
Yeah. Not having any doubts. It's like, why do I doubt? I've accomplished so much, and like, but still,
There's two sides to that coin too, though. Like there is, sometimes it's good for you. Sometimes it's good for that. It may be me. I'll give myself as an example. I don't know about you guys specifically, but sometimes I need sometimes I need a loss. You know what I mean? Sometimes I need like a couple of hours to be hard on myself and say this is something that you could have controlled. Just yesterday, something happened. I lost a deal, and it was absolutely in my control. And the only thing that I did wrong was communicate at the pace at which my client asked me to communicate with them. Because I knew that communicating once a week or once every 10 days is not enough. I knew with what we were trying to accomplish that was not enough communication. But that was the wish of my client, and they were a big client, and it was a new type of interaction for me. And I didn't say, we shouldn't do it this way. And then exactly what I knew was going to happen happened. And I beat myself up for that pretty good last night. And then I woke up at 6 o'clock this morning, and I took my ass to work. And I think that window of like kind of beating myself up has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. But sometimes when 4 or 5, like I've always learned in the sales world, it's like when you're closing deals, you keep hitting doors. You know what I mean? Like when you're hot, when your confidence is the highest, like it just permeates off you in a way and into other people. People are super susceptible to like feeling that type of emotion when you're confident and when you're, sometimes I approach things with too much confidence. Sometimes I have to level set myself and say, yeah, you're really good at it, and you know what you're talking about, but you need to touch this one a little bit more frequently than you touch some of your other things that you do, because it's that type of interaction that you need to have to protect this one. And I didn't do it, and I learned that lesson yesterday, right? And I reminded myself of that. So I can relate that too. It's like sometimes I shouldn't be so hard on myself, and sometimes those things are completely out of my control. But sometimes it's also a really, really good reminder to me that I'm human too, because I have a really good, I convince myself of that all the time, that I am just him, you know what I mean? Like it's not an unfamiliar space with me, especially with salespeople, man. Golly, I mean, you can't not walk around. You can't hang out with all of my other salespeople and not ooze confidence. Like that's just who they are, and it rubs off on you. And so like sometimes I need that. Sometimes I need
it's
that.
good to be, to have humility. I mean, you have to have the combination of
humility
for sure. And then quiet confidence.
Well, I feel like you earn it too. You know what I mean? Like it's just happened to every aspect of my life. Like that humbling moment has happened in everything that I've done in my life for my whole life. Like I have had, 10 good things happen in a row, or I'll win 20 basketball games in a row, or I'll win whatever, or I'll play poker for 4 good weeks in a row, and then I'll go up there and get took for $4,000. You know what I mean? Like it always happens, that thing that reminds you don't have a say in every single thing. Sometimes you're going to take a loss and it's going to be your fault, and that's okay. You know what I mean? And that's been maybe the hardest thing for me to learn is like, no is just that much closer to the next yes. You know what I mean? Like that is truthfully, I've been hearing it for 7 years of sales, and it's truthfully been the hardest thing to actually learn and understand.
That's very difficult to learn.
Oh, it is.
That's very much in the acting world.
Yeah, I guess auditioning, you kind of learn that too.
There's 10, and they tell you time and again, there are 10,000 reasons why you didn't get something that have nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
But being the person that's going on those auditions, it doesn't help. It doesn't help when they say, well, it's something else. And then you have to get up and go and do it again. Get up and go and do it again. And the thing is, those kinds of things beat you up, and then you get into a point where you're at a place where everything lines up for you. But if you're still thinking about all that stuff that's bothering you, you blow the opportunity that is actually in your hand.
Exactly.
So it's really it's a really difficult thing to do.
Yeah, it definitely is. That was why I am appreciative to be able to wake up with a fresh mentality for interactions like this the day after something like that. You know what I mean? Like that is learned behavior. No doubt it comes from a thick skin and resilience that you earn. You know what I mean? And there's just no way around it. Like, you can be as mentally strong as possible, but when you wrap who you are and what you're worth into what you love from a creative standpoint, there's gonna be times where you are heartbroken, and it's stuff that you just gotta deal with. You know, it's just what you gotta deal with. We talked a little bit about the burn the ship illusion before the podcast. These guys have heard me say it so many times, so I'm gonna spare them one. What does it feel like to burn the ship? What does it feel like to go all in on your business and on your creative side and commit to finding the value in who you are and what you do?
Liberation and fear, all combined, but liberation. It's like you're creating your own life.
Oh, yeah.
That is everything.
Oh yeah, that level of freedom is hard to find. When you make your schedule, I think that's what a lot of people want, is to make their schedule, right?
Yeah.
No, you don't.
Have their own, really?
No, they do. They think that. And then you make your schedule, and your schedule is 11 hours long. That's what people don't want. It's like, you want to set your schedule. You want to work on your own time. Yeah, right, buddy. Entrepreneurship and especially like anything in the creative world is like you're at the mercy of your passion. You know what I mean? And it is very liberating. It is very freeing. It is super exciting to wake up and do something that you love. But you gotta love it. You know, you gotta love the ups and the downs and the process and all those. And you gotta fall in love with the art and not the numbers. You know, so I can relate to that. It is very liberating, but it is it's a scary thing. That's like I said at the beginning of the podcast. Like, if you can find a way to be happy without all that weight, do it, because it's an awesome to be that feeling, and to feel free and feel fulfilled and feel valuable and all those things is like such a human thing. You know, it's something that I think there's 8 billion people in the world right now. It's something that 8 billion people want, is to feel desired and valuable and free and liberated and all those things. And man, it's so hard to do in entrepreneurship too. Don't think that going all in on your business is going to give you that feeling day one, because there's going to be it's going to give it to you some days and it's going to snatch it back the next. So
I think 3 years, you go from, you're talking about everybody wants it and would love to have that. There's a difference between love to have the freedom and the joy of entrepreneurship.
Oh yeah.
Because the first couple of months, there's a joy, there's a love. It's, oh, I love this. I can do what I want. I can make it myself, and I make my own schedule, and I'm doing what I want. And about, I'd say, a month or two in, because things are very rocky at first, then you start to realize you have to work a little longer, like you said. Then there's also that backlash of the security of having a job. And then that kind of isolated moments in there where it's just you're not going to an office, you're not talking to people except for what you're trying to do. There's a thing of that fear will pull you back into taking a job and say, well, I'll keep the job and do that. But then you end up not doing that.
It absolutely will.
And that's in every job, because that was, I burned the ships. I sold everything, packed the car, drove to California. That's what I did when I first went to California back in 2001. Go out there, I'm gonna make it. Didn't know anything only been out there 2 weeks once in my life to try and figure it out. And then while you're there, you have to get a job to keep yourself going. And what happens is I was very good at dealing with people, and I was bartending, so and I had quit that. I said, I'm not going back to it. But then while I'm there and I'm trying to figure out navigating the entertainment industry in a place that I'd never been, which was supposed to be the Mecca at the time. So I put those kind of thoughts in my head. So then you're putting it on a pedestal when it's not. So then again, you're not showing up authentic. And that's what happens with entrepreneurship across the board. This is what I want to do. Okay, I got to do it this way. Why? Why do you have to do it that way? If you do it like everyone else does it, then you're already behind all those people who have already established themselves. But if you do it the way you do it, you're number one.
Yeah.
And that's going to be hard. That's blazing a trail. That's going to be very difficult. But that's the best way to do it because that's you. And that's where your success is going to be. But it takes you a while to kind of figure that out. And if you're not careful, you will be destroyed in that first couple of months and go back to whatever it was you were doing and then say it didn't work. It's not that it didn't work. You have to stick it out longer. You have to fight through all of those things. This is where you make your moment. Because just like there's no one is like you, so if you go into your own business, no one's going to do it like you. Unless you try and follow someone else's. And you can follow someone for a little while, but you're not going to get the revenue because they're getting it and they already got it. They already know, they're already established. So being your authentic self and bringing yourself to it, there's a lot of walls you got to go through before you start to see any sunshine. But you have to know that the sunshine's there. If you have a pinhole in the wall and you can see light, go to it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll leave the audience with this, right? I have one question for you guys. Would you rather be doing what you do, or would you rather be doing nothing? I think that is a key baseline of entrepreneurship. I ask a lot of people that, especially my friends, when they say, I want to start my own business. I'm like, oh, would you rather be doing that or would you rather be doing nothing? Because if the answer is not, I would rather be doing that, you should probably take a look at something else. Like fall in love with something that you want to do before you decide this is the easiest road for me. I'm curious of your answer. Your answer is not right or wrong. I think in my generation, the advice that I give to those people is exactly right because my friends, I'm 26, you know what I mean? My friends don't know shit, honestly. We know nothing. And if I hadn't been analyzing payments information for every industry in the world for the last 7 years, I wouldn't either. But I truthfully think if you would rather be doing nothing, about 2 months into your business, you're going to be doing nothing. That is what I think. So I'm curious if your perspective is the same.
I hate doing nothing.
Yeah.
I hate it. I have to be always learning, always doing what I do. I love it. And I'm never going to retire. I mean, I'm going to be doing it until I die because that's how strongly I feel about it.
I love that answer.
You know, gives me something.
Yeah. I honestly don't know how to do nothing and be comfortable with it. Even when, sick and I'm supposed to rest, bugs the hell out of me. Bugs the hell out of me. I just don't feel, I get antsy. I don't like to just sit and do nothing, which is weird because you feel like, oh, this is a time you can rest and you can, you're supposed to rest at this point. It just feels weird to me.
Yeah.
To do nothing. I can do it for maybe an hour. Then it's like I got to do something. Yeah. I got to move. I got to do something.
Yeah, I find myself as I get older, I can't even sleep in anymore.
Right?
Isn't it weird?
Yeah.
Sometimes I even tell myself I'm going to do it and I don't. It's like those are the days that I wake up earlier. I can't believe I told myself that I was going to sleep.
You said 26?
I'm 26.
Yeah, 26.
I'm not really though. I guess like mathematically I am, but I've been alive that many days. But
you're more like 38.
Yeah.
26. I think. Yeah. I'm trying to think of 26. I slept in pretty easily, but I just started bartending too. So, that job puts you in bed at 2 or 3 in the morning. So you're not getting up till noon.
Yeah.
So you basically wasted a whole day.
And that used to be me. And I was across the bar from you. You know what I mean? I was at 2 and it wasn't even the job. I was spending money there.
Was.
I was spending money there and then going to bed at 3 in the morning and then waking up at 12. And then I found something that I loved, you know what I mean? Then I
Yeah.
started finding production, and I was just so interested in making and building something for myself that here we are. So that's all I got. Burn the ship. You got
Burn the
anything else, please leave them with it. But I think we covered a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Stick with it.
Yeah.
Just stick with it.
Cool. Thank you. All right. We're